Okay, hello. This is What Would You Do week number 4. And in this scenario, I am acting as a regional agricultural decision maker, and I'm reviewing these climate maps that have been presented to me. These maps show that planting zones are shifting northward as temperature and precipitation patterns change, and it's already affecting where crops can be grown reliably. So, based on this information, there was a decision whether to wait 5 more years for more data or begin planning now for long term climate change. Okay, so the key concept guiding my decision making is the carbon cycle disruption. The carbon cycle is the natural movement of carbon between the atmosphere, living organisms, when they die, how it's released through the oceans, through the Earth's crust, naturally. Human activities, though, especially through fossil fuel use, digging it all up, this has accelerated the cycle by releasing large amounts of stored carbon into the atmosphere. The video, How Humans Disrupted Cycles Essential to Life, actually explains that this acceleration is happening so quickly that natural systems can no longer rebalance on their own naturally, leading to an ongoing climate instability. And because this disruption is already happening, adaptation is pretty much necessary. So, for my first decision, I chose to follow outside researchers' recommendations to prepare for long term regional climate change rather than wait the 5 years. And this is because we already know that it's happening. Carbon cycle disruption is driving persistent warming by trapping more heat in the atmosphere, which directly affects temperature and precipitation patterns. This is on full display in chapter 11 on page 314 and 315. There's two full pages of these cute little graphs, and these cute little graphs that I will put on screen do a good job in documenting these changes. They include graphs that show rising global temperatures, increasing humidity, melting ice, and rising sea levels. These visuals show that climate change is not a short term fluctuation, and that waiting another 5 years to act would only delay preparation and increase agricultural risk. Planning now allows agriculture to adapt before losses become more severe. So then we come to a second decision making scenario. And in this, I recommend funding that supports adjusting planting times to adapt to climate change rather than recommend funding collaborations between farmers and researchers to develop GMOs. I base this decision on some information from chapter 12 on page 343, where it explains that heavy reliance on genetically modified crops can create this weird cycle where pests and weeds evolve resistance alongside the GMOs. And this, in turn, requires increased chemical use over time. This approach increases vulnerability rather than resilience. So, adjusting planting times is a lower impact alternative that works with changing climate conditions instead of trying to override them. And I believe this helps farmers reduce risk without expanding farmland or increasing chemical dependency. So, essentially, my decisions emphasize proactive adaptation based on the scientific evidence provided. And by responding directly to the carbon cycle disruption through long term planning and flexible agricultural practices, I believe this approach supports a more sustainable way to reduce future environmental and economic risks. I look forward to seeing what you guys have to say in regards to this decision making scenario. Thanks.